Now, one of the easiest ways to grow your OnlyFans agency is to sign more creators, but not just more creators, more good creators. And today I'm going to teach you how to massively improve your close rate. My name is Liam Turnbull, CEO here at TDM, and over the last 5 years, we've grown over 100 creators to the top 0.1%. So let's get into it. When I'm doing sales calls, I actually break down the call into 6 clear steps. So the first thing I want to do is clarify why. Why are we even here today? Why is it that they've applied for management? Why is it that they've accepted your call? We want to understand why they're even in the frame of mind to be open to your pitch. Essentially, we're just trying to figure out what do they actually want to get here. The next thing that we need to do is to label the problem. Now, it's really important that we think about the problem from their perspective, not from yours. It's very easy with the trained eye that you and I have to look at it objectively and say, oh, well, the branding's weak. That kind of content just doesn't work anymore. The funnel is poor. The chatting's weak. But actually, that's not what they're here for. That's what you picked up on. What they're here for, the problem that they want solving, is likely different, and it's likely more emotive. They probably feel like they just didn't have enough support from the previous agency. Maybe they've felt preyed on financially or sexually. Maybe they weren't happy with the team because the team didn't come across very professional, or maybe they just felt as though their promises were broken. Remember, a lot of agency owners are over-promising and then vastly under-delivering. And so that's probably what they're frustrated about. Essentially, we are giving them the chance to vent, okay? Get it off your chest. Just tell me what's going on. Tell me what you didn't like, and tell me what the perfect agency is for you. I want to hear from you. Describe it. What's the dream outcome here? What do you want to get out of an agency? Just give it me in the most honest format. Be completely honest with me. The best thing about this is that you've got complete clarity then, because you're able to say, well, why didn't it work with the previous agency? You know, why hasn't it worked here? Why don't you think you've been able to find that there? You often unpick the real reason. In fact, you might even find that it's actually them. You know, they might actually explain to you that, oh, well, the agency just weren't doing very well because I didn't give them any content. You know, you're going to start to unpick the real reasons there as to maybe why they're underperforming, maybe why they aren't getting the most out of other agencies. You know, I've had it many a time where a creator has jumped on the phone with me and just moaned about this agency that I know are actually pretty good at what they do. And I'm sort of there thinking, well, you know, I've got to figure out what's really going on here. And I unpick. Lo and behold, there's the real problem. And so now we've got the problem out there in the open. We have a chance to basically pitch to that, okay? We can solve it. And so we want to do that by getting some sort of invite to sell. The nice thing about this is that when somebody is invited to sell, their pitch comes across way cleaner, okay? It's less sales-like. People don't like being sold to. And so if they just come at you with a sales pitch, you're naturally going to be deflecting it. Okay, now it's the same in the creator's shoes. They don't want to feel your pitch. They don't want you to come across as super salesy. But if you say, look, can I just tell you about what we do? Or actually, you don't like that. Well, can I tell you about what we do? You know, it completely changes the frame, because then they say, oh yeah, tell me about it. And then when you tell them, you can pitch and it doesn't come across as a pitch. And you're just sort of subconsciously giving them all of the ammo that they need to shoot the gun of your agency. It's at this moment that we want to get across that we're a premium service, we're very selective about the creators that we work with, we do things the morally right way, and it's also a chance to actually reframe that conversation as well. So taking it away from your pitch to them and instead almost their application to join you. Okay, that's one of the most effective parts of a sales call with a creator. Changing the landscape so that it is them applying to work with your agency. And so you can almost go through this process of getting them to the next stage of the interview process, the next stage of the application process, and it quickly becomes something that they're quite eager to go through with, just to sort of prove to themselves that they got through. Right? It's psychologically very effective. So after you've put across your pitch, it is almost certain that they're going to give you a few objections. And how we actually explain those objections away will determine whether or not it's enough to stop them from signing with you, or whether it reinforces their decision to do so. Now, we use a framework here called the AAA. Acknowledge, associate, ask. This is a framework that I picked up from Hormozi, and it's a great way to handle those objections and overcome the problems that they present you during the sales pitch. They're likely going to moan about the percentage that you charge. They're likely going to want some time to think about it. They're likely going to make reference to how they just don't feel comfortable with long contracts. And it's at this stage that you can actually reframe that by saying, firstly, acknowledge, yep, totally get it, makes sense. I can completely understand why you would want that. Associate, It's a completely normal question, and the people that get the most out of our service typically tend to ask these kind of questions, so not a problem at all. And at this stage as well, if you actually can solve the problem, you can make reference to that, like, look, we don't actually have any sort of long-term contracts, we do things on a lifetime trial. And then if you need to, you can go back and ask them the question. So look, what's more important to you? Okay, an example here would be with the percentage. If they said, no, it's just way too much for me, it's like, look, totally get it, makes complete sense, it's a great point you make. Naturally, it's easy to judge things based on what they charge. But actually, if I said to you, what's most important here? Is it the percentage that you pay, or is it how much your account grows relative to that? Because if you can explain it in a way where they understand that a big percentage is okay if they get the big growth, and you can eliminate the risk for them because you do it on a lifetime trial, it's still a no-brainer offer. Despite their initial objections, it's still a no-brainer. And it's like, what's the harm? What's the risk? Should we give it a go? And they're likely going to say yes. And finally, we want to reinforce that decision. So give them the confidence that this decision that they've made or are making is a good one. You're going to look back on this day as a real turning point for your page. I'm so glad you've made the right decision. You can even, if you want to, again, associate it to something positive. Like, I've had very similar conversations with some of our best creators to date. I've had very similar conversations with people that have absolutely thrived on the service. The questions that you ask, they tell me a whole lot about you, very similar to that of what I've had with our best performing creators. You can relate it to a very positive outcome. And as long as you're not lying and genuinely able to offer value as an agency, this is a completely moral thing to do because you're adding value to their page still. This is a framework that completely dominates the closing game. And if you're calling creators using this framework, I assure you, you're going to close more creators.